Chapter 1. In front of me is a donation box, and I'm about to drop my bank card into it. Someone nearby mockingly says, "Oh, Sophie, everyone else is donating cash, and you're donating a bank card. Don't think that donating more money will make John be with you. Yeah, John doesn't care about your filthy money." I snap back to reality, my gaze fixing on the card in my hand. I then put the bank card back in my pocket. Fine, since it's filthy money, I won't donate it. I wouldn't want to dirty this donation box. John's friend looks stunned, clearly not expecting me to refuse to donate. John comes from a poor family. His mother has been chronically ill, and he's known as one of the poorest students in school. That's why the teachers organized this donation drive for his family. In my previous life, I foolishly donated the entire $10,000 I had saved over the past 2 years. The bank card stood out among the colorful bills. When people found out I had donated $10,000 to John, some said I was obsessed with him, others said I was crazy, and some even admired my generosity. But John's friends claimed I was humiliating him with money. Since that's how they felt, I decided not to humiliate him in this life. Just as I turned to leave, a familiar voice called out, "This is a donation drive. How can you say you won't donate?" It was Emma, the shameless girl who, in my previous life, had come to my house pregnant to torment me. Seeing Emma again filled me with rage. Despite her innocent, cute face, Emma had a heart as venomous as a snake. Perhaps because her family's circumstances were similar to John's, they were quite close. Suppressing my anger, I replied, "Donating is my choice. Earlier, people were calling my money filthy and telling me not to donate. Now that I'm complying, why are you unhappy?" Emma's face turned red as she retorted, "You were the one using money to humiliate John first." Yes. I spread my hands, so I took it back. I won't humiliate him anymore. Isn't that enough? Since freshman year, I had been chasing after John, and everyone knew it. This sudden change left the room in an awkward silence. Emma was stunned for a moment, then self-righteously said, "Oh, you're worried about embarrassing him in public? Then you can give it to him privately later." I glanced at John standing to the side. His eyes were unfocused, as if none of this concerned him. In my past life, he had always watched coldly, carrying himself with an air of superiority. I sneered. "What does his embarrassment have to do with me? You all said not to donate, so I won't. I'll use the money to buy some good food for the stray dogs near the school gate instead. Even stray dogs know how to wag their tails to make me happy. All John ever did was spend my money and break my heart." Chapter 2. John had good grades and looked handsome. He had managed to get into college from a poor rural area and even gave a speech as a freshman representative. From that moment, I was captivated. Although he had done well in his high school exams, it was only within his province. At this prestigious university filled with talent, his grades were no longer outstanding, and he couldn't secure high scholarships. Even with the poverty grants, he couldn't afford the tuition and lived frugally in the city. Other girls, seeing his situation, wouldn't even consider approaching him despite their feelings. Only I was foolish enough to bring him meals every day and transfer money to his account every month, paying his mother's medical bills and buying him new clothes each season. It could be said that his entire living expenses were covered by me. He was practically my kept man, yet he never showed me a kind face. When his resume landed on my family's company desk, I pulled some strings to get him a job. With his qualifications, he couldn't have gotten into the company on his own. I even proposed to him. Even in modern times, it's rare for a girl to propose to a guy, especially one who doesn't like her. But I liked him and offered to fund his startup. For someone like John, who came from nothing, this was immensely appealing. He agreed. For the first 3 years of our marriage, he wasn't as cold to me. At least he spoke to me nicely, and I seldom saw Emma around. I thought he had come around and appreciated my goodness. I was such a fool. He was just pretending to make me happy, scamming my money, and hollowing out my family's business to welcome his true love of 10 years. That day, Emma, holding her belly, laughed gleefully. "I'm carrying John's child now. If you're smart, divorce him voluntarily. Oh, and if you rush to your company now, you might see your dad one last time." She showed me her phone screen, which displayed a live broadcast about the company. "Look, everyone. That's the chairman on the rooftop. The company went bankrupt, and he's about to jump. Days of extreme exhaustion made my breathing labored. Sophie, thanks to you, John managed to take down your company so quickly. Emma's laughter was malicious. John stood by, echoing her sentiment without restraint. It was all part of my plan, ha ha ha. I thought it was just a temporary business crisis that we could overcome, but it turned out to be John's long-planned scheme. To help the company through this crisis, I hadn't slept for days and nights, and now I was betrayed like this. My vision darkened, my heart ached terribly, and I couldn't catch my breath. Before I passed out, I vaguely heard John's gentle voice. Emma, don't tire yourself. Go sit down. What about Sophie? Let her be. Who cares? I died before the paramedics arrived. Had they called for help sooner, I might have survived. But they didn't. Chapter 3. In this new life, I plan to stay far away from John, protect my father, and safeguard the company. And I will make sure that those two pay for what they did. Now, I want to see how John survives without my money. I expected him to come to me, but not so soon. The very next day after the donation, he cornered me outside the classroom. I stepped around him to enter the classroom. Sophie, where's my breakfast? He frowned, blocking my way. What breakfast? I raised an eyebrow. I don't have a habit of running errands. John's face stiffened and he said irritably, What kind of game are you playing now? Do you think not donating money or bringing me breakfast will get my attention? I extended a finger and moved his arm aside. Then why are you blocking me? It seems like you're the one trying to get my attention. He quickly withdrew his hand, his face even more unpleasant. John, so full of pride, accepting my money while resenting me for giving it. Every time I transferred him money, he would later mock me, warning me not to harbor any romantic delusions. Yet, he never mentioned refusing the money or paying it back. He acted as if I owed it to him. His friends were the same, looking down on my generous spending while circling around him because of the money I gave. John thought they were his good buddies, but they were just after my money. Such hypocrisy. But this time, John went away empty-handed. His friends swarmed around him. John, what's for breakfast today? He glanced at me and stayed silent. In my previous life, I always bought a variety of breakfasts for him to choose from, and the leftovers would be given to others. But this time they'd be disappointed. Seeing no breakfast, one of them slammed the table angrily. Sophie, not donating was one thing, but not even bringing breakfast for John. How selfish can you be? Chapter 4. John had excellent grades and good looks. Emerging from a remote village, he stood out during his freshman year speech as a new student representative. That one look and I was hooked. Although his high school exam results were impressive, they were only within his province. At this prestigious university brimming with talent, his grades were no longer outstanding, and he couldn't secure high scholarships. Even with poverty grants, he couldn't afford the tuition and lived a frugal life in the city. Other girls, seeing his situation, wouldn't approach him despite their feelings. Only I was foolish enough to bring him meals every day, transfer money to his account monthly, pay his mother's medical bills, and buy him new clothes each season. It could be said that his entire living expenses were covered by me. He was practically my kept man, yet he never showed me a kind face. When his resume landed on my family's company desk, I pulled some strings to get him a job. With his qualifications, he couldn't have gotten into the company on his own. I even proposed to him. Even in modern times, it's rare for a girl to propose to a guy, especially one who doesn't like her. But I liked him and offered to fund his startup. For someone like John, who came from nothing, this was immensely appealing. He agreed. For the first 3 years of our marriage, he wasn't as cold to me. At least he spoke to me nicely, and I seldom saw Emma around. I thought he had come around and appreciated my goodness. I was such a fool. He was just pretending to make me happy, scamming my money, and hollowing out my family's business to welcome his true love of 10 years. That day, Emma, holding her belly, laughed gleefully. I'm carrying John's child now. If you're smart, divorce him voluntarily. Oh, and if you rush to your company now, you might see your dad one last time. She showed me her phone screen, which displayed a live broadcast about the company. Look, everyone. That's the chairman on the rooftop. The company went bankrupt, and he's about to jump. Days of extreme exhaustion made my breathing labored. Sophie, thanks to you, John managed to take down your company so quickly. Emma's laughter was malicious. John stood by, echoing her sentiment without restraint. It was all part of my plan, ha ha ha. I thought it was just a temporary business crisis that we could overcome, but it turned out to be John's long-planned scheme. To help the company through this crisis, I hadn't slept for days and nights, and now I was betrayed like this. My vision darkened, my heart ached terribly, and I couldn't catch my breath. Before I passed out, I vaguely heard John's gentle voice. Emma, don't tire yourself. Go sit down. What about Sophie? Let her be. Who cares? I died before the paramedics arrived. Had they called for help sooner, I might have survived. But they didn't. Chapter 5. In this new life, I plan to stay far away from John, protect my father, and safeguard the company. And I will make sure that those two pay for what they did. Now, I want to see how John survives without my money. I expected him to come to me, but not so soon. The very next day after the donation, he cornered me outside the classroom. I stepped around him to enter the classroom. Sophie, where's my breakfast? He frowned, blocking my way. What breakfast? I raised an eyebrow. I don't have a habit of running errands. John's face stiffened and he said irritably, What kind of game are you playing now? Do you think not donating money or bringing me breakfast will get my attention? I extended a finger and moved his arm aside. Then why are you blocking me? It seems like you're the one trying to get my attention. He quickly withdrew his hand, his face even more unpleasant. John, so full of pride, accepting my money while resenting me for giving it. Every time I transferred him money, he would later mock me, warning me not to harbor any romantic delusions. Yet, he never mentioned refusing the money or paying it back. He acted as if I owed it to him. His friends were the same, looking down on my generous spending while circling around him because of the money I gave. John thought they were his good buddies, but they were just after my money. Such hypocrisy. But this time, John went away empty-handed. His friends swarmed around him. John, what's for breakfast today? He glanced at me and stayed silent. In my previous life, I always bought a variety of breakfasts for him to choose from, and the leftovers would be given to others. But this time they'd be disappointed. Seeing no breakfast, one of them slammed the table angrily. Sophie, not donating was one thing, but not even bringing breakfast for John. How selfish can you be? Annoyed by their disturbance so early in the morning, I retorted, What? Do you all expect me to support you too? How about calling me Mom? And I might consider it. The person's face turned red with anger but still tried to argue. It's just breakfast. You're so rich and you can't spare a little money. I looked them up and down mockingly. Do you know you look just like a beggar asking for handouts? John, who had been silent, finally couldn't hold it in anymore and said coldly, Enough. I will earn a scholarship. I don't need your charity. I looked up at him. In 10 years, this was the first time I heard him say something so dignified. I couldn't help but laugh. John's face darkened. What are you laughing at? Do you think I can't do it? Oh, nothing. I wish you success and I'll be watching. If he could do it, why didn't he do it before? Chapter 6. In my previous life, I transferred living expenses to John's account monthly, and he would spend it all. Every time he received the money, his friends would pester him to treat them, and Emma would hint at her own financial difficulties. He would give her money and buy her gifts. Looking back now, I was truly a philanthropist, supporting so many people before even starting my own family. But this month, I didn't transfer any money. John's mother was seriously ill and needed money urgently. The donations from the class were far from enough, and even if he used his living expenses to cover the gap, it still wouldn't be sufficient. When the driver came to pick me up, he habitually asked, Miss, are we going to the hospital? Every month end, I would visit John's mother and pay the medical bills. I shook my head. No, let's go home. And don't ask me about it again. The driver's surprised look quickly disappeared as he adjusted the route. As soon as I got home, I received a call from the hospital. Miss Sophie, the medical bill hasn't been paid this time. John had listed me as the contact. From now on, please contact the patient's son, John. I'm not her daughter, and I won't pay her bills anymore. I hung up the phone and heard my dad's delighted voice behind me. Sophie, you're home early today? My eyes welled up instantly. In my previous life, my father had worked himself into poor health. He raised me single-handedly and managed to pull through several crises for the company. But on that fateful day, he chose to jump off a building because he didn't want to burden me. Seeing my silence, my dad anxiously walked over. "What's wrong? Did someone bully you? Was it that John kid? I'll go find him." I quickly stopped him. "No one can bully me. I have nothing to do with him anymore." He was stunned and then laughed heartily. "Great." My daughter finally wised up and saw through his true colors so quickly. My dad had never approved of John. He had tried to advise me, but I was too obsessed with John to listen. All he could do was protect me as best as he could, but in the end, all his efforts were in vain. I took a deep breath and changed the topic. "Dad, I've seen our friends' social media posts saying people your age should take good care of their health. Tomorrow, I'll take you for a checkup." He nodded, pleased. "Sure, if my daughter cares about my health, I'll definitely oblige." I accompanied my father to the hospital for a full checkup the next day. While he was undergoing tests, I went to pay the fees and happened to see John and Emma pleading with the doctor to extend the payment deadline and start treatment first. Holding the bill, I queued up. Emma, with her sharp eyes, spotted me and immediately called out, "Doctor, the person who pays is here. Over there. Can we start the treatment now?" I rolled my eyes. She was truly dense, not understanding my earlier words at all. Ignoring her, I went ahead and paid for my father's checkup. The doctor glanced at the system and shook his head. "No payment has been made. Stop trying to fool me and think about how to raise the money. I have other patients to attend to." Just as I was about to leave, Emma grabbed my arm. "Didn't you pay?" I nodded calmly. "Yes, I did." "Then why did the doctor say you didn't pay?" I looked at her quizzically. "She's not my mother. Why would I pay for her? What does it have to do with me?" At this moment, John frowned and approached. "You used to pay. Now you just stop." "What about my mom?" I rolled my eyes. "She's your mother, not mine. You figure it out." John looked pained and forced himself to say, "You're just trying to be with me, right? If you pay, I'll consider being with you." I stepped back. "That's not right. My mom's long gone. Are you saying you want your mom to?" Emma screamed, "Sophie, you're evil. How could you wish ill upon his mother?" I sneered. "I didn't say that. Since you want to save her so badly, why don't you pay? I have more important things to do. Goodbye." In my previous life, whenever I visited John's mother, she treated me as a walking ATM. She only saw me as someone to exploit. Even after I married John, she constantly urged him to hand all his money over to her. Someone like that wasn't worth saving a second time. After my father's checkup, I noted down everything the doctor said. This time I would ensure he stayed healthy. Not only that, but I would also protect his business. As for John's family, they could fend for themselves. Chapter 7. John took on multiple part-time jobs. He stopped treating his friends to meals and giving money to Emma. He even asked them to return the money they owed him. He kept meticulous accounts, making sure they repaid every penny. Of course, the results were disappointing. His so-called friends vanished, and only Emma stayed by his side. She probably thought I was just temporarily angry and would eventually resume supporting John. She was sorely mistaken. In the classroom, Emma shamelessly confronted me. "I know you're jealous because of me, but don't worry. John and I have nothing. You can continue supporting him. Right now, he desperately needs money. Give him $10,000, and he'll definitely be with you." $10,000? I laughed. How shameless. Wasn't he the one who said he didn't need my charity? And what right do you have to say this to me? Besides, with $10,000, I could find someone much better than him. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw John approaching. He clenched his fists, enduring the humiliation. The continuous work had taken a toll on him, and he looked terrible. His expression was full of humiliation, but he spoke humbly. "Sophie, you win. I agreed to be with you. Please pay the medical bills." I sneered. "Do you think this is a game? When did I say I wanted to be with you?" He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. "You've been trying to get my attention by not giving me money or bringing breakfast. You've succeeded. Are you happy now?" I coldly replied, "John, listen carefully. I don't like you anymore. You're poor and have no skills. Why should I continue liking you? Stop bothering me. Isn't it shameful for a man to keep asking a woman for money? Understand. John staggered, unable to believe it. That's impossible. Even if you don't like me anymore, can you help me one last time? I've given you plenty of money before. It should be enough for the medical bills if you saved it. But you spent it all, gave it to others. It's your fault. If you need money, get it back from them. His face turned deathly pale, and he reached out to grab me. Sophie. I stepped back, avoiding his grasp. To my surprise, he collapsed. It mirrored the scene from my previous life when I collapsed and died, but this time our roles were reversed. What did it matter to me? John. Sophie, you've gone too far. You've driven him to faint. Emma screamed, rushing over to check on him. John was breathing steadily, unlike when I died. He had merely fainted. How unlucky. I nudged him with my foot. Hey, wake up. He didn't move. Our classmates gathered around, whispering, but no one stepped forward to help. I scanned the crowd and pointed at a few who usually hovered around John. You enjoyed the free meals. Now it's time to repay the favor. Take him to the infirmary. Why should we? You're the one who made him faint. I sneered. You were the ones who spent all his money, making him work multiple jobs and faint from exhaustion. Should I call the police to see if you should repay the money? After all, it was my money. I have every right to ask for it back. They immediately fell silent, reluctantly lifting John and carrying him out. Emma shot me a hateful glare before leaving, filled with resentment. What did she have to be resentful about? Chapter 8. I remembered how Emma used to sow discord between us. When I wore new clothes, she'd say, Sophie is so lucky, born into a wealthy family, changing clothes every day. We can't compare. We have to be frugal. Right, John? When I had a new purse, she'd say, this must be a luxury brand, right? John, you've never seen one, have you? Neither have I. She's from a different world than us. Her experiences are different. Even if I bought a simple cup of milk tea, she'd comment, that milk tea costs dozens of dollars. I've never had one. You must look down on the cheap drinks we usually have, right? I tried to defend myself, but John wouldn't listen. He'd only become more annoyed with me, thinking I was flaunting my wealth and looking down on him. Emma seemed to take pleasure in it. Despite having everything, I couldn't win John's heart, but Emma had his favor. It was like she had taken something I could never have. I realized she was just envious. Envious of my better family background, trying to get something from me by getting close to John. She would always flaunt the gifts John gave her, which were actually from my money. The watch on her wrist was a gift from me to John, which he gave to her instead. She would feign innocence, saying, oh, this is the gift you gave John. He didn't like it, so he gave it to me. You don't mind, do you? Or should I return it? But you might dislike it since I've used it. John would coldly watch me, making me afraid to say I minded. Any word from me was wrong. In front of John, I had no pride or dignity. I rarely gave gifts, but he could easily give my gifts to someone else. I realized I hadn't bought anything for myself in a long time. My living expenses were all saved to cover John's mother's medical bills. Now, I would spend my money on myself openly, without caring about anyone's opinion. When John was in the infirmary, I went to the mall. The best way to celebrate breaking free from misery was to shop. I didn't expect to see Emma there. She should have been in the infirmary with John. I followed her quietly and saw her enter a luxury watch store. She blushed and told the sales clerk she wanted to return a watch. I stood at the entrance watching her get rejected. She didn't have the receipt. I had removed the tags and discarded the receipts for everything I gifted John to spare his pride. Emma turned around awkwardly and saw me. I lazily leaned against the door frame watching her. Her face turned red with anger. You're just here to see my embarrassment, aren't you? I nodded honestly. You guessed right. She became even angrier. It's all because you stopped giving John money, forcing me to return his gift. Is it really for John's sake? Or are you just out of money? I tilted my head towards the nearby escalator. She hastily denied. What are you implying? I don't need money. Then why did you come when he's sick? Emma choked, then lashed out. Since you know, why ask? I hate you. I approached John to annoy you and get money. I stole your man and spent your money. Are you satisfied? I smiled without saying a word. Her agitation grew. You might be rich, but so what? John doesn't love you. His mom doesn't like you either. She wanted me as her daughter-in-law. John is poor, but you're the fool giving him money. I benefited from it. Shut up. John stormed over, his face livid. I had seen him coming and waited for him to hear Emma's true feelings. John didn't immediately confront her, instead anxiously looking at me. Sophie, I love you. Don't listen to her nonsense. Chapter 9. This was a joke. In 2 lifetimes he had never said he loved me. He even hated me to the point of ruining my family. Yet he could say this now. I had seen how he treated someone he truly loved. With Emma, he was gentle and caring. When I died, he only cared about her comfort, not me. He was never like that with me. When I helped him secure investments, enduring sleazy businessmen who forced drinks on me until I was sick, he didn't even offer me a glass of water. When I bought myself a birthday cake and asked him to come home early, he used work as an excuse to stay out all night. His mother, assuming that our marriage gave her the right to be a tyrannical mother-in-law, constantly belittled me. I endured it, but he never defended me. For him to say he loved me now was a mockery of the word. I only felt disgust. I replied sarcastically, "Do you hear yourself?" Emma, still clutching the watch, looked panicked. "John, are you sick or something? She's not one of us. She'll never truly care for you. You're just a plaything for her." John glared at her coldly. "Stop saying that. Every time you say these things, it's to drive a wedge between us. I was wrong about you." Emma, desperate, grabbed his arm. "I was just angry, trying to provoke Sophie. I don't really think that way." I watched their farce with detached amusement. Emma, realizing she was about to lose the only thing she had taken from me, was frantic. John, thinking he had a chance, was grasping at straws. Both of them were pathetic. They continued to argue, oblivious to my departure. John's pathetic attempt to win me back only reminded me not to go soft on him. In my previous life, I gave up my scholarship application so John could be the last one to receive it. I teamed up with him in various competitions, ensuring he got some recognition. This time, I reapplied for the scholarship and entered competitions on my own. I called my assistant, instructing him to follow the proper procedures for the company's scholarships, without giving John or Emma any special treatment. The company's scholarships were the most generous, and neither John nor Emma met the requirements. I had ensured they were included before, but not anymore. When the scholarship lists were posted, Emma was furious. She couldn't find her name and came to confront me. "Sophie, why did you and John get removed from the list? Does the company only listen to you? Isn't that obvious?" I smiled. "You didn't qualify. Without me, you had no chance. What about the academic scholarship? Why didn't John get it?" I shrugged. "His grades weren't good enough. How's that my fault? You're so rich. Why do you need the scholarship?" Our classmates gathered around, whispering. I laughed. Did I take someone's spot? Anyone here think I stole their scholarship? One classmate raised their hand. "No way. My grades aren't good enough. Even if you hadn't applied, I wouldn't have gotten it. Yeah, I'm in the top 3. You didn't push me out. Fair competition. Who's doing what? If you're not good enough, don't blame others. We're civilized people." John entered the classroom as Emma clung to him. "John, Sophie made you lose your scholarship and the company's financial aid. She's so cruel and selfish, knowing you need that money for your mom's treatment." John pushed her away. "It's none of your business. Sophie isn't cruel or selfish. I failed to meet the requirements. Stop trying to cause trouble." Emma stared at him in shock. "What did you say? I'm trying to help you. Didn't you say you needed the scholarship?" John looked at me. Emma was out of line. "I'm sorry." Emma's eyes were filled with hatred as she glared at me. I felt a chill run down my spine, sensing something terrible was coming. Chapter 10. John asked to meet me by the lake. I didn't want to go, but he said it would be the last time. After that, we would go our separate ways. When I arrived, he was staring at the lake, lost in thought. "Sophie, I had a dream. In it, you were different. You donated money, supported me, and married me." He turned, testing my reaction. From the moment he said he loved me, I felt something was off. His defense of me in class was even more suspicious. His probing confirmed my suspicions. I continued. And then I died, right? You were the one who caused it. John had been reborn too. He dropped his facade, adopting the demeanor he had in his later successful years, calm and composed, yet now tinged with anxiety. I regret it. I regret not saving you. My pride got in the way, and Emma's manipulation made me resent you. I thought she was my true love. After marrying her, I realized she only wanted my money. She never loved me. Only you did. I replied indifferently. None of that matters now. There's no more genuine love. John's eyes reddened. Can you give me another chance? I've died once too. Emma pushed me off a cliff, claiming I fell by accident and inherited everything. She even got herself a new boyfriend. We've both died once. That makes us even, right? I scoffed. She didn't push you. How is that even? He pleaded. Then kill me once. Sophie, let's start over. I'll be good to you, better than I was to Emma. I truly regret everything. After I died, I realized how much you meant to me. I looked at him with disdain. Don't waste your time. I'm curious though, how thick-skinned are you to say such things? Are you just hoping to live off me again? Hit me, scold me, whatever you want. I deserve it, but don't abandon me. John looked like a pitiful abandoned puppy. A sharp, venomous voice cut in. So my dream was real. If you two are both back, then let's die together. We were all reborn. Emma rushed forward, shoving me hard. This lake had no barriers. I couldn't swim. Neither could John. But John pushed me aside and yanked Emma into the water with him. Emma flailed, struggling, but John laughed maniacally. I'll trade my life for yours. Can we start over? He was insane. I grabbed a life buoy from a nearby pavilion and threw it to them, then called campus security. Chapter 11. Both of them ended up in the hospital. There were surveillance cameras by the lake, which clearly recorded the entire process of Emma pushing us into the water. John grabbing her was seen as an instinctive self-saving act. After Emma woke up, she was detained. She knew very well that John and I couldn't swim, yet she deliberately pushed us into the water. It was an attempted murder. Having been a barrier between John and me for years, I kindly went to visit her. She was not doing well. Her hair was cut short, her complexion was sallow, and she had lost the vibrant energy that once attracted John. I kept wondering how she managed to stay by John's side for so long. Maybe it was because, like attracts like, John was going through tough times, and it was rare for him to see a girl who remained cheerful and lively despite her circumstances, like a bright sun shining on him. Or perhaps his insecurities made him feel even more unbalanced when facing me, and all his feelings were overshadowed by this imbalance, turning into jealousy, dislike, and resentment. But none of that matters anymore. Emma glared at me with hatred. It's a pity I didn't manage to kill you. You were born with everything, and now you've even got John. You must be very pleased with yourself, right? Are you mocking me in your heart, thinking I couldn't snatch anything from you like a pathetic clown? I couldn't help but laugh. I don't need to mock you in my heart. I'm here to mock you face to face. She angrily leaned against the window, frantically pounding on the glass, wishing she could tear me apart. But she was trapped in a small room. No matter how much she flailed, she couldn't hurt me one bit. Seeing her in such a miserable state, I felt completely satisfied. As for John, the one who caused my suffering, now that he's back, he must atone for his past life sins. I didn't help him, nor did any company associated with the family. If he had the ability, he should earn scholarships based on his own merits. But he was destined to fail. Not only did I study hard myself, but I also tutored classmates with similar grades, striving to surpass him. John endured it silently, not daring to complain, only constantly looking at me with pleading eyes, which disgusted me. After graduation, he sent his resume to the family company. But how could the family possibly hire him? Without me saying anything, my father ordered to reject anyone with poor character. John couldn't find a job, so he had to take on part-time work and odd jobs to barely make ends meet, unable to pay for his mother's medical bills. His mother was kicked out of the hospital, and they lived in a basement. As for how long his mother could hold on, I didn't care. Those who don't appreciate kindness, well, if they pass away, so be it. Chapter 12. After graduation, I followed my father's arrangement and met the son of his old friend, Mr. Williams. We were well-matched, had similar insights, and shared the same values. After spending some time together, we felt quite compatible. We had common interests, were honest and respectful to each other, supported each other in life, and were equally matched in work. I didn't have to constantly please him, and he wouldn't maliciously speculate about me. When we walked into a Western restaurant together, we saw John working as a part-time waiter. He approached our table, looking uneasy yet with a hint of longing. "Sophie, this is..." Without hesitation, I shattered his illusions. "My boyfriend, William." William had heard about my past with John. When I asked if he minded, he said he wanted to be the next and last person to hold my concern, and that the one who didn't cherish me would never have another chance. At this moment, William smiled calmly and confidently. "Hello, I am Sophie's boyfriend and fiancé. We are getting married in a month. If you have time, Mr. John, you are welcome to join us and witness this important moment for Sophie and me." He held my hand tightly, his eyes full of hostility as he stared at John, as if guarding his territory in front of an enemy. I gave him a reassuring look. Although he invited John to the wedding, he didn't take out an invitation card, even though he had a few with him. Clearly, he was unwilling. I didn't expose him and tapped a few times on the ordering tablet, saying lightly, "We've finished ordering, you can leave now." John lowered his head in embarrassment and muttered, "I really have no chance, do I?" I ignored him and discussed our date plans with William. John turned and walked away silently. I thought he wouldn't come looking for me again in this lifetime,